Hello, and welcome. Have you ever felt trapped in a life that seems to steer you rather than one you steer yourself? Today, we explore self-help. This is your chance to change your life. A journey into the moment when accepting responsibility becomes the spark for lasting transformation. If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to BookSnap, and comment below the title of the book you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. Each morning, Maya's alarm jolted her from uneasy dreams of deadlines and disappointments. She slipped into her office cubicle, the gray light of fluorescent fixtures matching the dull ache in her chest. For years, she had blamed her long commute, her demanding boss, her childhood disadvantages, but never herself. Today, as she scrolled through another litany of complaints in her group chat, a phrase from a self-help title caught her eye. Take ownership of your life. She paused, coffee mug halfway to her lips. Could this chance, this moment, be her gateway to real change? The previous evening had been like any other. She sank onto the couch after dinner to binge-watch escape stories. People discovering their passions, quitting their jobs, reinventing themselves. Maya felt a familiar pang. Envy, followed by rationalizations. That's them, not me. My situation is different. But as she watched another protagonist refuse to accept blame and seize agency, a ripple of longing stirred within her. Agency. The power to choose. It sounded foreign on her tongue. That night, she dug out a neglected journal from her desk drawer. Under a layer of dust, she found a half-written reflection on her 25th birthday. Ambitions sketched in bullet points, now faded by time. She read, I want to wake each day excited to face my work. The earnest sentence felt like a beacon. Maya closed the journal and breathed deeply. Tomorrow, she vowed, she would begin to claim responsibility, not for her entire life, but for one simple choice: how she greeted each morning. At dawn, instead of lurching from bed to snooze button, Maya sat up and whispered, Today, I choose to own my day. The words felt awkward, but as she stretched her arms toward the ceiling, she sensed a subtle shift, her body registering intention. In the elevator, she consciously straightened her posture rather than slouch. In the lobby, she greeted the security guard by name instead of dodging his nod. Each small act, she realized, was a declaration. I am not a passive passenger. Inside her cubicle, Maya faced her inbox brimming with requests. In the past, she'd grumble under her breath, muting her dissatisfaction in emails. Today, she paused before replying, asked herself, am I the victim of these demands, or can I shape my response? She drafted a concise, assertive message, proposing realistic timelines and delegating minor tasks. Her fingers trembled at first, but when she clicked send, she felt a surge of calm authority. She had reclaimed her voice. By lunchtime, colleagues noticed Maya's unusual steadiness. You seem different today, a teammate remarked. Instead of deflecting, Maya smiled and said, I chose to own how I respond to everything. The words surprised even her. She spent her break walking outdoors, letting sunlight filter through her layers of doubt. With each step, she felt the weight of blame falling away, her commute no longer a burden but an opportunity to reflect, to listen to herself rather than lament. That afternoon, a tough project meeting loomed, one where Maya had historically shrunk, blaming her lack of experience on past colleagues for leaving her unprepared. As the discussion began, she resisted the impulse to sink into silence. When a bottleneck emerged, she raised her hand and offered a suggestion, a streamlined draft process that integrated feedback more quickly. Her idea wasn't revolutionary, but it was genuine and grounded in her understanding of her team's workflow. Colleagues nodded, and her manager even said, Good point, Maya. The applause felt oddly sweet because she had earned it through responsibility, not luck. That evening, Maya returned home and revisited her journal. She wrote, Today, I owned my choices. Small decisions that changed my experience. She underlined the word owned, feeling its power. She realized that for too long she'd surrendered to external forces, relinquishing control over her emotions and actions. But each moment of responsibility, she claimed, was like picking up a piece of herself, assembling the mosaic of a life she actually authored. Over the next week, Maya expanded her practice. She selected one area each day: her morning routine, her lunchtime break, her approach to meetings, and consciously took responsibility for how she engaged. When her computer crashed mid-report, instead of cursing fate, she backed up her work daily. When traffic snarled during her commute rather than stewing, she used the time to listen to inspiring podcasts about people who had transformed their lives. With each action, Maya felt her confidence grow. Her relationships began to shift as well. When her roommate complained about chores, Maya had historically snapped back. Now, she suggested a shared schedule, taking initiative rather than escalating conflict. When her best friend called with complaints about her own dead-end job, Maya remembered her own choice to own her responses, and gently asked, "What small step could you take today to change your outlook?" Her friend paused, then smiled thoughtfully. "Maybe I'll try your habit. Own one choice tomorrow." Maya realized that by owning herself, she could inspire ownership in others. By the end of the month, Maya no longer saw life's challenges as external adversities, but as invitations to exercise her agency. She tackled a long-standing desire, applying for a certification course, rather than blaming cost or time. When she passed the exam 2 months later, she felt the triumph as much from her persistence as from the credential itself. The transformation wasn't about a new skill, but the internal shift. She had proven to herself that she could choose change rather than wait for it. Maya's journey illustrates the first and most fundamental lesson of self-help. True transformation begins with taking personal responsibility for our choices, however small they may seem. No external circumstance can trigger change until we own the power we hold in every moment, the power to choose our thoughts, our words, and our actions. When we cease to see ourselves as victims of fate, we become architects of our own destiny. As Maya stands at her cubicle window, watching the city lights blink awake, she feels a sense of possibility she hasn't known in years, a quiet confidence that each new dawn belongs to her, and she alone will decide what she does with it. And in that realization lies the chance to change a life, one choice at a time. Envisioning a new self. Carla's classroom was filled with the rumble of restless blankets and the soft whine of morning sunlight through dusty blinds. As a high school English teacher, she once loved lighting her students' eyes on fire with Shakespeare's soliloquies. Now, 10 years in, she endured mechanical lectures, stiff seating charts, and the ceaseless grind of standardized tests. Each evening, she carried home the hollow ache of scripts unlevied and stories untold in her own life. One Saturday, scrolling through her phone in a coffee shop, Carla paused at a prompt from Self-Help. This is your chance to change your life. Envision the person you yearn to become, not as wishful thinking, but as a living portrait. The words shimmered on the screen, and she felt a jolt. She had become a faded sketch of her original spark. Closing her eyes, she let the aroma of espresso swirl around her, and she asked, "Who do I want to be?" At home, Carla cleared her kitchen table, spreading out colored markers, blank paper, and a worn copy of the book. She began to sketch. In the center, a figure standing tall, no longer hunched over lesson plans but poised at a lectern in a community center, leading dynamic workshops on creative writing to lifelong learners. Around her, images of travel, handwritten postcards from distant cities, and late-night hours spent scribbling her own novel's first chapter. Each stroke became a metaphor. The lectern, a symbol of confident voice, the map a testament to curiosity, the blank pages an invitation to authorship. When Carla stepped back, the vision seemed both foreign and familiar. She realized that for a decade her identity had orbited the classroom's fluorescent glow, but her heart still whispered stories yearning to be told. She felt a swelling conviction. Transformation begins not in abstract goals, but in a vivid, sensory-rich picture of who we choose to become. That evening, she shared her vision board with her roommate. "This is me, leading writers' circles and sending stories into the world." The roommate's eyes lit up. "That Carla is brilliant. You need to make her real." Encouraged, Carla committed to living into that vision, not someday, but now. She devised a simple ritual. Each morning, before grading essays, she would spend 5 minutes gazing at the vision board, absorbing the lectern's presence, the horizons of travel, the blank pages. She wrote a short affirmation beneath its edges. "I am a creative guide, an explorer of worlds both real and imagined." Repeating these words felt awkward at first, but with each sunrise, Carla sensed her posture shift. Her shoulders eased, her spine straightened, and her mind opened beyond the day's lesson plans. In the classroom that Monday, Carla approached her students with renewed energy. Instead of initiating the standard "today we'll analyze," she invited them into a story expedition, asking each to imagine a moment they wished to relive or rewrite. She distributed blank index cards and colorful pens, encouraging free-form sketches and fragmentary beginnings of tales. The hum of curiosity rose as students leaned forward, their voices weaving images of castle uprisings, memories of childhood laughter, and futuristic cities born from vivid imagination. After class, a quiet student lingered. "I haven't written anything since middle school," she confessed. Carla smiled, recalling her own buried dream. "Then let's start together," she said, handing the girl a fresh card. "I believe you can become the writer you imagine." In that moment, Carla realized that in embodying her vision, she was igniting others' transformations as well. That afternoon, Carla enrolled in a local adult education course on creative writing, tucking the syllabus into her bag like a secret talisman. Evenings once reserved for weary sleep became carving out time for short stories. Each chapter felt like breathing life into the portrait she had drawn. Some sentences stumbled, but with each draft, Carla heard her own inner voice grow stronger. Within weeks, Carla launched a weeknight writers' circle at the community center. Her vision's lectern rendered tangible. She posted flyers in coffee shops and the school's faculty lounge, inviting anyone with a story to join. The first meeting drew 6 participants, each clutching notebooks filled with hesitant lines. Carla guided them through simple prompts. Write a letter to your younger self. Describe a world seen through another person's eyes. Laughter and shared silences wove the group into a creative fellowship. Simultaneously, Carla applied for a summer residency at a writer's retreat by a mountain lake, a piece of the travel imagery she had placed on her vision board. She hesitated as her finger hovered over the application's Submit button. Fear whispered that she wasn't ready. Yet recalling her affirmation, she clicked Send, feeling a thrill as the digital seal locked her commitment to becoming someone who said yes to possibility. When acceptance arrived weeks later, Carla stood before her reflection, this time seeing not just a teacher in habit, but an author in formation. She booked days off, arranged home tutoring coverage, and packed her bags. At the retreat, she wrote under towering pines, her pages reflecting sun-dappled hope. Fellow writers encouraged her first novel's premise, a story about a teacher who rediscovers joy through collective storytelling. Carla felt her original self and her new self converge, the educator and the novelist unified in purpose. Returning to school that fall, Carla balanced curricula with her writer's circle, daily affirmations, and the gentle glow of her first completed draft. The classroom, once confined by routine, became a launchpad for imagination. Students called her Miss Transformation, behind her back, noting how her own journey inspired them to envision renovation in their own lives. Carla's story shows the second pillar of lasting change, envisioning a new self with vivid clarity, and then inhabiting that portrait through daily rituals and courageous steps. When we draw the first line of who we wish to become, We open pathways toward that reality. One decision, one affirmation, one brave application at a time. As Carla stands at the podium of her community center, novel pages in hand, she marvels at the transformation born from that single morning of imagining. The vision board's lectern is no longer ink and paper, but a real stage from which her life's new chapter unfolds. Each breath she takes resonates with the Maker's promise, that when we see ourselves anew, we unlock the chance to become who we dream to be. Confronting inner resistance. Dylan stared at the blank page of his startup's pitch deck, cursor blinking patiently as if daring him to summon the right words. He'd founded a wellness app promising guided meditations and community support circles, convinced it would change lives. Yet every time he sat down to craft his vision, a whisper of doubt crept in. Who am I to help others heal? What if I fail like so many entrepreneurs before me? The familiar anxiety twisted his stomach into knots, halting his fingers above the keyboard. That evening, Dylan reopened Self-Help. This is your chance to change your life, seeking solace in its pages. He turned to the chapter on confronting inner resistance, where the author wrote, "Our greatest barrier to transformation is not external obstacles, but the invisible walls of fear and self-doubt we build within." Dylan recognized those walls in himself, ancient defenses forged in childhood criticism and a few harsh failures. He realized that before he could lead change in the world, he needed to dismantle those inner barricades. He began by identifying his most persistent fears. In his journal, he listed them out: fear of rejection, fear of inadequacy, fear of financial ruin. Seeing them in ink made them feel less amorphous, each a tangible adversary he could challenge. He then paired each fear with a defiant question. What if rejection is redirection? What if inadequacy is opportunity to learn? What if risk leads to reward? These reframing questions felt like secret keys that might unlock closed doors in his mind. Determined to confront his resistance in action, Dylan devised a fear exposure challenge. Each week, he would deliberately face one anxiety-provoking task. The first was drafting an email to a respected wellness influencer, requesting feedback on a prototype. Previously, he would have written and rewritten endlessly, paralyzed by the possibility of being ignored. Now, he vowed to send a sincere note within 30 minutes. Fear be damned. He set a timer, opened his email, and wrote from the heart, acknowledging the influencer's work, sharing his vision, and humbly asking for guidance. He clicked send with a racing pulse. Hours passed in agonized anticipation before the reply pinged. A short, warm note expressing interest and offering a 10-minute call. Dylan's chest tightened with relief and triumph. His first wall had cracked, allowing a sliver of light to enter. Buoyed by this success, Dylan tackled his second fear: public speaking. He signed up for a local meetup's 5-minute pitch night, far outside his comfort zone. Standing under harsh stage lights, he felt sweat bead on his brow as the audience sized him up. Then he remembered the reframing question. What if perceived inadequacy becomes shared authenticity? He spoke candidly about his app's mission, his stumbles, and the lessons learned. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. For the first time, vulnerability felt like strength rather than weakness. Each fear exposure challenge chipped away at Dylan's inner resistance. He courted collaborations, presented at industry panels, and even shared personal stories on social media, each act a small victory over the doubt that once muzzled him. He journaled after every challenge, noting how fear's roar diminished when met head-on. His reframing questions grew into mantras. Rejection is redirection. Inadequacy invites growth. Risk births opportunity. As his confidence blossomed, Dylan's startup gained momentum. His email to the influencer led to a partnership pilot. His meetup talk attracted beta users. His social media vulnerability drew an engaged community eager to share their own wellness journeys. He realized that embracing resistance rather than avoiding it created authenticity that resonated deeply with others. Yet the path of confronting fear was not linear. A fundraising pitch to investors went poorly. His voice quivered, metrics faltered, and polite nods turned to blank stares. In the aftermath, old doubts resurfaced, louder than before. For a moment, he considered retreating. Then he recalled the book's warning that setbacks are the fee reworks that illuminate the contours of our resolve. Dylan embraced the failure as data. He sought feedback, revised his deck, and practiced until his delivery felt grounded. His next pitch soared, securing crucial seed funding. Through this crucible, Dylan learned that inner resistance is a dynamic opponent. It retreats after each confrontation, only to regroup in fresh guises. The solution is not a one-time victory march, but a lifelong practice of facing fear with intention. He built these challenges into his calendar, ensuring resistance never regained the upper hand. Months later, as Dylan prepared to launch his app's full version to thousands of users, he paused to reflect on how far he'd come. The once blank pitch deck now brimmed with compelling narratives. Cold emails had become warm collaborations. Trembling speeches now ran on steady breath. He realized that the truest transformation arises when we meet our own resistance, not with avoidance, but with deliberate, courageous action. As dawn broke over his workspace, Dylan wrote a final entry in his journal. Every fear faced is a step toward the self I choose to become. And with that truth resonating within him, he pressed the launch button, embracing the unknown, knowing that each breath of courage would carry him further than any comfort zone ever could. Building keystone habits. Marcus stared at the cluttered kitchen counter, empty cereal boxes, unpaid bills, and his long-neglected guitar gathering dust in the corner. As a husband and father juggling a demanding career in sales, he felt perpetually behind. Mornings rushed, evenings eaten by email, weekends swallowed by errands. He yearned for change, yet every promise to get organized or find time dissolved before the next dawn. Then, in Self-Help, This Is Your Chance to Change Your Life, he read about keystone habits. Small foundational behaviors that trigger widespread positive ripple effects. The chapter described how one simple habit, like making your bed each morning, could cascade into greater organization, improved mood, and better productivity throughout the day. Marcus felt a spark. He didn't need a complete life overhaul. He needed a keystone habit, one that, by its very practice, would realign other areas of his life. But which habit would wield that power for him? He reflected on his mornings, a blur of groggy stumbles, unread messages, and half-packed lunches. Yet on weekends he found calm in a cup of coffee on the back porch, just 5 minutes breathing fresh air before the world's demands. He realized that intentional morning presence, consciously pausing to center himself, could be his keystone. If he began each day with that mindful ritual, perhaps the rest would follow more smoothly. The next morning, Marcus set his alarm 15 minutes earlier, resisting the urge to snooze. In the dim glow of dawn, he stepped onto the porch with a steaming mug of tea, inhaling the crisp air. He let thoughts flow, gratitude for his family, clarity on the day's priorities, anticipation for small joys ahead. For 5 full minutes, there were no emails, no to-dos, only the gentle rhythm of breath and birdsong. That simple practice felt revolutionary. When he returned inside, he made his bed with care, tucking corners, smoothing sheets, a minor triumph that reinforced his morning's intention. His lunch packed neatly, he even glanced at the bills on the counter and scheduled a reminder to address them later, rather than letting them loom unspoken. As he left for work, Marcus carried not just his briefcase but a sense of purpose rooted in that 5-minute ritual. At the office, his colleagues noticed the change. Marcus arrived at his desk before the day's chaos, sipping the last of his tea and reviewing his calendar with fresh eyes. He tackled high-priority calls with calm focus rather than reactive mode. After completing a challenging negotiation, he leaned back and smiled, surprised at his own composure. His manager commented, "You seem unusually grounded these days. Good energy." Encouraged, Marcus leaned into his keystone habit. He paired it with 2 supporting routines. Each evening, he would lay out his clothes for the next day, reducing morning friction. And he would unplug from screens 30 minutes before bed, journaling 3 wins from the day. These companion habits, born of his morning presence, reinforced his emerging rhythm, transforming his days from frantic marathons into intentional treks. Back at home that evening, Marcus greeted his family with genuine presence. When his daughter asked about her day, he set aside his phone and listened fully. When his wife returned from work, he asked about her projects instead of sharing his own frustrations. His evenings, once a jumble of chores and emails, now included a nightly walk around the block with his daughter riding her scooter, moments of unhurried connection sparked by the calm he cultivated each morning. Within weeks, the ripple effects expanded beyond routine. At work, Marcus identified inefficiencies in his team's process and proposed a streamlined workflow, an initiative he might never have mustered under his former stress. His mornings of quiet reflection had opened space for strategic thinking. At home, he found the energy to tune his old guitar, rediscovering the joy of music that had once defined him before life's demands overtook his passions. Then came the true test. A month into his practice, the family's upstairs plumbing burst overnight. Water dripped through their ceiling, alarms shrieked, and chaos erupted. In the old Marcus's world, this disaster would have set off a week of frenzy. Emergency calls, tempers flaring, sleepless nights. Instead, Marcus paused, recalling his 5 minutes on the porch, his breath steadying. He surveyed the damage, calmly shut off the water valve and called a plumber while assuring his worried family that together they could handle this. During the ordeal, his keystone habit proved its power. He guided his daughter through cleanup with cheerful reassurance, helped his wife salvage keepsakes, and negotiated service calls with clarity. Their home became a scene of cooperative problem-solving rather than fraying nerves. Marcus realized that the habit of intentional presence not only protected his equilibrium, but centered his family in shared resilience. By the end of that week, with repairs complete, Marcus sat once more on his porch mug in hand. He gazed at the morning light filtering through leaves, reflecting on how a single 5-minute practice had transformed the texture of his life, improving focus at work, deepening family bonds, and equipping him to weather crises with composure. He added a journal entry. A small daily pause becomes the keystone for every triumph. Marcus's journey illustrates the transformative power of keystone habits. By anchoring change in one deliberate action, we cultivate the ripple effects that reshape our routines, relationships, and resilience. Each morning's presence was more than a moment of calm. It was the foundation for an entire life lived with intention, creativity, and grace. Harnessing support networks. Leo sat in the corner of a bustling cafe, his laptop open to a blank resume website. He had graduated with honors in environmental science months ago, yet job offers had been scarce, and those that did arrive felt like lifelines rather than genuine fits. He wrestled with isolation, convinced that breaking into his field required a dose of luck he didn't possess. Then an author's story in Self-Help. This is your chance to change your life caught his eye. No one climbs alone. Your network can be the wind beneath your wings. That evening, Leo opened his contacts list, realizing it bristled with old classmates, professors, and distant colleagues, with whom he had lost touch after graduation. He resolved to transform casual acquaintances into active allies. The next morning, he crafted personalized messages. A thank you note to his thesis advisor asking for career advice, a brief update to an internship supervisor expressing gratitude and seeking referrals, a friendly check-in with a former classmate now at a green tech startup inquiring about opportunities and company culture. Responses arrived quicker than Leo dared hope. His advisor recommended 2 alumni working in sustainable consulting, sharing their emails. His internship supervisor invited him to an upcoming industry mixer. His classmate offered to introduce him to her company's hiring manager. Each exchange felt like a beam of light piercing the tunnel of his uncertainty, reminding him that support lies not in anonymous job boards, but in relationships cultivated over time. Armed with these connections, Leo attended the industry mixer with genuine curiosity rather than desperation. He sensed his confidence shift when he reminded himself, "I am part of a community that cares about my success." He listened more than he spoke, asking seasoned professionals about emerging sustainability trends and offering insights from his research. One conversation led to an invitation to join a pro bono project assessing a nonprofit's carbon footprint, experience that would grace his resume with real-world impact. Leo also launched a Learning Circle, a monthly video call with 4 peers from university, each specializing in different aspects of environmental work: policy, engineering, advocacy, and research. Together, they critiqued each other's cover letters, shared leads on job openings, and brainstormed solutions to industry challenges. This circle became both a support network and a think tank, fusing their diverse strengths into collective momentum. When one member landed a position, the group celebrated. When another faced rejection, they rallied with encouragement and practical feedback. To broaden his reach, Leo joined online forums and professional associations, asking thoughtful questions and publishing concise articles on sustainable urban design. Senior members began to recognize his name, opening doors to mentorship and speaking invitations at webinars. His network evolved from transactional exchanges to genuine community, people invested in his growth and eager to collaborate. Within 2 months, Leo's harness networks bore fruit. The pro bono project led to a published case study. Webinar invitations yielded connections with 2 consulting firms. And through a mutual introduction, he secured an interview for a junior analyst role at a leading sustainability consultancy. When he accepted the offer, Leo realized that support networks are not generic resources but ecosystems of shared expertise and goodwill, and nurturing them is as vital as honing any technical skill. Reflecting on his journey, Leo understood that self-help is not a solitary quest. It thrives in the company of others. By intentionally reaching out, offering value, and sustaining reciprocal relationships, he transformed his isolation into collective empowerment. His story illustrates that success often arrives not with a solitary triumph, but through the synergy of connected souls, each amplifying the other's ascent. As Leo packed his bag for his first day at the consultancy, he slid his phone into his pocket, feeling a silent gratitude for every message, call, and brainstorming session that had carried him here. He opened his network app one last time, sending a quick note to his learning circle. "Thank you for being my wind beneath the wings." And in that simple act, he honored the most vital lesson of all. We are strongest together, and our greatest opportunities are born when we harness the power of the communities we build. Navigating setbacks and growth. Jasmine stared at the charred remains of her small bakery, the acrid smell of smoke clinging to her clothes and dreams alike. Just 2 years ago, her artisanal sourdough had drawn lines around the block. Now, a kitchen fire threatened to extinguish all she had built. As patrons peeked through soot-streaked windows, she felt the familiar sting of failure and the raw fear that her life's passion might never rise again. That evening, overwhelmed, Jasmine opened Self-Help. This is your chance to change your life and turn to the chapter on navigating setbacks and growth. The author wrote, "Obstacles are not dead ends but stepping stones. In each defeat lies the blueprint for reinvention." Jasmine realized that while she could lament the loss of her ovens and signature brick oven, she could also mine this crisis for insights, to transform ashes into something stronger. The next morning, Jasmine gathered her small team, her assistant baker, a dishwasher, and her best friend who handled social media, in the empty storefront. She shared the setback honestly: the fire, the insurance hurdles, the displacement. Then she asked a vital question: what can we learn, and how do we rebuild better? Rather than wallow, they brainstormed. They discovered that their old oven, though beloved, consumed vast energy and presented safety risks. They envisioned a leaner, cleaner operation, perhaps a shipping container kitchen that could be relocated using modern, energy-efficient equipment. With newfound resolve, Jasmine reached out to local makerspaces and culinary incubators, securing a temporary shared kitchen lease. She launched a crowdfunding campaign titled Rise from the Ashes, sharing videos of her team laughing while kneading dough in makeshift spaces, turning debris clearing into community bake-offs. Patrons contributed not merely for rewards, but to rally behind a story of resilience. Within days, funds poured in, enough to cover equipment rentals and initial deposits. But rebuilding required more than money. Jasmine also confronted her own perfectionism, which had driven her to overextend staff and neglect safety protocols. She implemented new checklists and safety drills, training her team thoroughly rather than rushing headlong into production. This discipline slowed her launch but gave them confidence. Each loaf now emerged from ovens that met the highest standards, and each baker moved with purpose rather than panic. As they baked their first post-fire batch, salted focaccia studded with rosemary, Jasmine felt an alchemy at work. The same flames that had destroyed could now fuel renewal. A neighboring cafe offered to stock her bread while her own doors remained closed, keeping her presence alive in the community. A local news segment on her comeback aired, drawing both old customers and curious newcomers who admired her tenacity. Yet, setbacks continued to test her resolve. A supplier's delay threatened a key flour delivery. A scheduling snafu left the shared kitchen double-booked. A delivery van broke down en route to a farmer's market. Each obstacle stirred panic's embers, but Jasmine recalled the book's insight. Each failure teaches the resilience to prevent or adapt to the next. Instead of despairing, she applied her recent lessons. She sourced alternate suppliers, built flexibility into her weekly slots, and arranged a backup delivery service with a neighboring entrepreneur. Over months, Jasmine's bakery emerged not as the fragile dream it had been, but as a resilient institution, adaptive, community-rooted, and purpose-driven. Her new mobile container kitchen became a local landmark, moving between markets and events, each pop-up raising both revenue and awareness. She hired former competitors displaced by economic shifts, fostering a sense of solidarity among small food businesses. In this crucible, Jasmine discovered that growth blooms not despite setbacks, but through them. The fire had revealed vulnerabilities in her systems and character, vulnerabilities she transformed into strengths through deliberate action. She learned to anticipate challenges, build redundancies, and lead with humility when seeking support. Her customers no longer saw merely a baker. They saw a phoenix whose every loaf carried the warmth of second chances. One autumn morning, as golden light poured into her new kitchen, Jasmine clipped a printout of the book's key passage above her workstation. Obstacles are stepping stones. In each defeat lies the blueprint for reinvention. She ran her flour-dusted hands over a rising dough, grateful for the lessons baked into every setback. For in that firestorm she had unearthed not the ruin of her dreams, but the raw materials of a stronger, wiser self, ready to change her life and inspire others to do the same. Embracing lifelong transformation. When retirement loomed at age 65, Marisol felt a mix of relief and restlessness. As a corporate accountant, she had mastered balance sheets and quarterly forecasts, but now retired, she wondered who she would be without the numbers that had defined her identity. The quiet of her suburban mornings felt unsettling until she rediscovered her well-worn copy of Self-Help. This is your chance to change your life on a dusty bookshelf. A reminder that transformation need not end with a career. Marisol decided to approach retirement as a fresh chapter, not a destination. She revisited the book's final admonition. Self-help is not a project with an endpoint, but a lifelong journey of renewal. She realized that every stage of life offers its own invitations to growth. Her next frontier lay in embodying the lessons she'd learned and discovering new ones along the way. To anchor her continued transformation, Marisol designed a seasonal renewal plan. Each quarter, she selected one dimension of her life: physical health, creative expression, community engagement, or intellectual curiosity, and crafted a small goal: a weekly yoga class, a watercolor painting series, volunteer tutoring at the library, or diving into a new subject via online courses. This cyclic approach allowed her to explore multiple facets of growth without the pressure of perfection. In spring, she joined a local hiking group, reveling in dawn's dew and the camaraderie of fellow walkers. The habit improved her fitness and sparked friendships that carried into book club discussions. In summer, she rediscovered her love of storytelling, writing short essays on childhood memories for a community blog. Readers responded with heartfelt messages, connecting her past to present lives. In autumn, she volunteered at the neighborhood literacy program, guiding adults to unlock their own transformative journeys through reading. In winter, she enrolled in a digital photography course, learning to frame moments of light and shadow with fresh eyes. Between seasons, Marisol revisited her vision board from years past, updated now with new images: a pair of hiking boots, a paintbrush dripping with color, open book icons, and the lens of a camera. Under each, she wrote affirmations: I move with strength. I create from my soul. I share my wisdom. I see beauty. Each cycle reinforced that change flows when we invite it through deliberate, varied practices. When life's unexpected turns came, her partner's health scare, a sudden friendship rift, Marisol turned again to her renewal plan, using the principles of responsibility, vision, habit, network, and resilience she had honed over a lifetime. She reached out for support, reframed her perspective, and leaned into new routines that soothed uncertainty: morning walks in nature, communal art sessions, heartfelt conversations in literacy circles, and the patience of capturing fleeting moments through her lens. As years passed, Marisol felt the vitality of lifelong transformation in each season's rhythm. Retirement was no static era, but a dynamic tapestry woven from her evolving aspirations. She mentored younger seekers at the community center, sharing the simple truth: the chance to change your life endures at every age. Each story she told, of confronting resistance at work, building keystone habits as a father, or rising from a bakery fire, came alive in the faces of those she guided. In the final glow of a golden autumn sunset, Marisol paused atop a hill on her favorite trail. She looked back on the winding path, its turning points, its setbacks, its triumphs, and felt a deep peace. The journey outlined in those 7 bullets had not been a checklist, but a living odyssey, a tapestry of choice, courage, and compassion. And though the road stretched on beyond her gaze, she embraced it with the knowledge that every breath carried the power to shape new beginnings. Shape new beginnings. Shape new beginnings. Shape new beginnings. Shape new beginnings.